Hi, it's Vernon again. Today I want to talk about something that rarely gets spoken about out loud, yet lingers in the back of many minds. When an older man is with a middle-aged woman, is it love or something else entirely? Some say it's romance, others say convenience. But love between an older man and a middle-aged woman often blurs those lines. What looks like devotion, the queen treatment, the flattery, the affection, may, underneath, mask fear of loneliness or fading relevance, even a quiet desperation wrapped in affection. I've seen these relationships thrive and fall apart, and what I've learned is this: sometimes love sets you free, sometimes it reveals what you were trying to avoid. But before we dive deeper into the truth about these relationships, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This space is for those seeking deeper wisdom about love, aging, and connection beyond 60, because with the right reflections, even the later chapters can be the most meaningful. Let's begin with the first truth, one that reveals what many older men after 60 are truly searching for when they look into the eyes of a middle-aged woman. Truth number one: the search for a mirror, not a muse. There's a quiet illusion many older men fall into: the belief that a relationship with a middle-aged woman is a kind of emotional rebirth. But more often than not, what they're really seeking is not inspiration, but recognition. She is strong, seasoned, still vibrant, and yet she carries stories of loss, growth, and compromise. To the older man, she isn't just a partner, she's a mirror, one that reflects his regrets, his resilience, and the parts of him still unfinished. This isn't just an idea I've thought about, it's a truth I've lived deeply and painfully. Years ago, after my divorce, I met a woman named Dana. She was in her late 40s, full of wit and candor, with a softness that came from surviving deep sorrow. I was drawn to her energy, but not just for who she was. I was chasing the version of myself I thought I had lost. I didn't see it clearly at first. I believed I admired her strength, but deep down, I was hoping her presence could validate mine. I mistook comfort for connection. There was a moment I still remember vividly. We were sitting in her kitchen one evening, the light dim, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She was telling me about her grown daughter and the things she feared for her. I wasn't really listening, not fully. My mind was elsewhere, wondering if I still had time to be the man I once dreamed of becoming. It hit me like a quiet thunder. I wasn't loving her. I was using her reflection to search for myself. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. In her presence, he's not just seeing her. He's confronting the image of himself he's carefully avoided. Unlike the fresh optimism of youthful love, this bond is rooted in reflection, the kind that grows from decades lived and losses carried. She holds the weight of memory with grace, while he hears the quiet reverberations of his past in the cadence of her truth. Their connection doesn't rush forward, it lingers, and in that shared stillness there is solace, and sometimes unsettling recognition. But where does the heart begin to deceive itself? When he gazes at her and sees only the shimmer of youth long past, the unspoken what-ifs, and the time that slipped through like water, he risks loving not her, but a ghost of himself. She becomes less a person, more an echo, a vessel for forgotten dreams. In that illusion, love ceases to be a meeting of souls and becomes a mirror of mourning, draped in warmth. It is not union, it is memory masquerading as meaning. What, then, is love, if it leans too heavily on the need to be seen, to be affirmed? In this delicate terrain, love must grow beyond metaphor and longing. It must step into the quiet, steady presence of two whole lives meeting, not to fill, but to witness. To truly love her is to honor not what she restores in him, but what she already is without him. The moment he leans on her to define his worth, love begins to lose its shape, no longer communion, but a quiet dependency dressed in tenderness. Perhaps the quiet ache we feel when reflecting on such love is simply this: that real connection isn't about being needed or even being understood. It's about being met, soul to soul, without disguise or demand. And yet, not every older man enters such a bond with illusions. Some relationships are not born from projections, but from mutual anchoring, where both individuals, weathered by time, find not just reflection, but resonance. This leads us to another truth, one that complicates the narrative further. Sometimes, it's not about searching for oneself in another, but about seeking stability in a world that feels increasingly fragile. Truth number 2. The illusion of mutual healing. In later life, love often carries with it a quiet hope that two people, both weathered and wounded, might find in each other a kind of healing. For older men, a relationship with a middle-aged woman can seem like the perfect meeting point. She understands pain, but still burns with clarity. He bears regret, but longs for gentleness. As the philosopher Carl Jung once reflected, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation does not always mean repair. Sometimes it simply reveals what was always hidden beneath. This wisdom brings to mind the enduring bond between Jeff Bridges and Susan Geston, a relationship shaped not by the illusion of rescue, but by the acceptance of scars. What sets them apart is not that they healed each other like saviors, but that they created a space safe enough for healing to unfold. They didn't rewrite their pasts, they read them aloud together. And in that mutual recognition, they found not repair, but renewal, the kind that does not erase what hurts, but allows it to soften into meaning. But here lies the subtle danger. When we seek love not to share our wholeness, but to repair our fractures, the connection begins to shift. It becomes less about presence and more about patchwork. A partner is not a sanctuary for all our wounds, nor is intimacy a balm for every sorrow. When two souls approach one another hoping to heal their hidden hurts, they may unknowingly burden the relationship with expectations it cannot hold, turning sacred ground into silent labor. The philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "One of the privileges of being in a relationship is being accepted for all the things you're not." Real love doesn't demand completion, it makes space for imperfection. Because here's the quiet paradox. Even when healing does happen, it doesn't always lead to closeness. Sometimes healing clears the fog and reveals the absence of true compatibility. Sometimes what we thought was deep emotional merging turns out to be temporary alignment, two aching hearts briefly walking beside each other, not because they belonged together, but because they were both lost at the same turn. Has anyone here ever lived through that kind of love? The kind that felt like it changed you, but couldn't remain? If it's still lingering in your heart, what does it mean to you now? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes your truth might be the reminder someone else has been waiting for. And this brings us to a deeper truth, perhaps the most difficult of all, that not every connection, no matter how tender or transformative, is meant to become a lasting bond. Some arrive to awaken us, not to stay. Let's step into that next. Truth number 3, the echo of legacy. In the later chapters of life, love often carries the weight of legacy. For many older men, entering a relationship with a middle-aged woman is not just about connection, it's about leaving behind something meaningful, even if quietly. There is a quiet yearning that this woman, grounded, luminous in her steadiness, might one day look at him and truly see him. Not the role he played in boardrooms or the mask worn at family dinners, but the essence that outlived those acts. the version of himself that whispers in solitude, the self formed not by triumphs but by what he endured and what he let go. It is not admiration he longs for, but recognition, a final gentle nod from someone who sees the man behind the myths and chooses to stay present with that truth. Consider Richard Burton and Sally Hay. After a life lived in theatrical extremes, fame, scandal, and the seismic intensity of his bond with Elizabeth Taylor, Burton's final years were not filled with applause, but with quiet. With Sally, there were no tabloid headlines, no fevered declarations. What endured instead was silence shared without fear. She saw past the Shakespearean gravity of his persona and into the quiet ache of a man longing to be held, not remembered. Her love wasn't for the actor, or even the icon. It was for the man who, in the twilight of life, sought not another audience, but a witness. This kind of love asks different questions. Not, will you change my life, but will you understand who I've become? Not, will you stay forever, but will you help me leave this life seen, not just known? As Viktor Frankl wrote, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. And in the late chapters of life, that goal shifts, no longer toward conquest or change, but toward peace, toward being understood. For some men, love is no longer the spark that sets a new fire, but the soft light that allows him to see the path he's already walked. It is not about starting over. It is about ending whole, with one person bearing quiet witness to who he finally became. Conclusion: love, in the quiet aftermath of experience, often sheds its need to impress. It no longer seeks approval or possession. It seeks to be understood in its most unadorned form. Relationships between older men and middle-aged women carry within them an unspoken gravity, not because of age alone, but because of what both carry to the table: history, fracture, resilience, clarity. When those lives meet, it is not a beginning or an end. It is an intersection. And in that crossing, something is revealed. What's revealed is not always romantic. It's often humbling, because in that moment, we realize love is not about what we can win, fix, or prove. It's about what we're still willing to offer, even after all we've lost. At this stage in life, love is no longer a flame we chase, but a quiet fire we tend. It asks not for fireworks, but for presence. For the courage to sit beside another human being, scars and all, and say, I'm still here, and I still choose you. That kind of love doesn't rush. It listens. And it doesn't complete use. It reminds us we were never meant to go alone. What if love at this stage is not about becoming someone new, but about being allowed to finally be who you are, without defense? Not to be completed, but to be witnessed, without illusion, without revision. To the men, ask not what she reignites in you, but what she reflects back that you've long ignored. And to the women, know that your self-possession is not a challenge to love, it is its calibration. Your clarity is not too sharp, your independence not too wide. They are the very qualities that remind love what truth feels like. You are not here to be less for someone else to feel more. You are here, wholly, and that is more than enough. These relationships, at their most honest, are not negotiations. They are recognitions. Two souls, no longer building futures, but anchoring in truths. No longer performing roles, but shedding them. If this reflection has stirred something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your voice, your presence, and your story help keep these conversations alive and help others feel less alone in their questions. This Vernon, thanks for watching.